Hey.
You still sound like shit.
Yeah. No, I'm my kid got me sick. I got my wife sick, so it's yeah.
Whatever they say, Hakuna Matata.
Yeah, that's what I sounded like coughing earlier. Just a Lion King enthusiast over here. Um, yeah, man. Hey, so yeah, dude, how you doing?
I've been doing pretty good. How have you been doing, man?
I've been doing better with this cold cough, whatever the heck this is thing going around.
The vid,
But
dude.
yeah,
You got the vid.
I hope not.
I always knew you were a Chinese spy.
Don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Hey, that was not me. That was not me flying over Montana. Okay.
Anyway, dude,
Yeah.
let me tell you what.
What?
I'm allowed to say it on air, right?
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Congratulations, dude.
Thanks. For those who are listening, so those who aren't listening, who don't know, I recently just got a really cool job offer for a company in the firearms industry. I start on the 20th. Really cool job, really good salary. I will be discussing that a little bit later as things kind of develop there and keep you guys in the loop. But yeah, cool things to come. Hopefully, some really cool things later down the pipeline as things work themselves out. So
Austin's doing secret squirrel shit, and he's just not telling everybody.
Right? Be like, I have to go kill Bin Laden again. Zombie Laden.
I have to go kill Devil Bin Laden.
Doom music intensifies.
Anyway, let's get dirty here. Let's just jump right down into it, dude. Let's get
all right.
Down with the nasty.
Speaking of dirty.
So dirty.
Speaking of dirty, the down and dirty, I think we want to talk a little bit about maintenance on your firearm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I understand. We all know. All those of us who shoot enough, we all know how dirty you can run your gun. We've all told our buddies. We've all said that story. Man, I ran the X amount of 1,000 rounds, or X amount of blah blah blah, or I ain't never cleaned it since I bought it. Yada 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 yada. We get it. All right, you're not impressing anybody. If you come and tell me like you fired 10,000 rounds to your rifle without cleaning it, I'm not like, oh wow, that's crazy. I'm like, oh, you should probably clean it though.
No, I'm like, oh wow. Remember when that individual we worked with at the gun shop went through like 7,000 or 8,000 rounds through his SIG?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I lost you there for a little bit. Yeah, I can hear you now. You're good. Yeah, no, I remember how caked that gun was with carbon.
It was sexy, dude.
Oh, dude, it was. I remember cleaning. I remember cleaning our rental guns when those things like the carbon would come off in like cereal sized flakes. Like you could have had carbonos for breakfast. It was, yeah,
dude. $1 million idea right there. Patent it.
Yeah, that's the cereal for the gun enthusiast right there.
The cereal that gives you cancer. What is lead? Like the carbon poisoning, the lead poisoning you get from it?
I think it makes you crazy. Something like that.
Like mesothelioma or some shit?
No, that's like asbestos.
I know, but like, isn't it like up the same alley?
Maybe something similar. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not a doctor.
I'm no doctor, but let me give you a piece of advice because I am not a doctor.
My outside of like IFAC knowledge, my medical expertise is basically 1800s medicine. Like, oh, you've got ghosts in your bloods, you should do cocaine about it.
leeches for everyone.
Yeah, I love how that was like a pliable solution. Someone somewhere went to years of medical school, because like back then people were going to college earlier and people were like apprenticing. So someone at like 14 is like, Papa, I want to be a doctor, and like studied under like learned doctors, right? Men of science. And he's like, oh, you've got a runny nose. We should put some parasites all over your body and suck your blood out.
You know what would be fucking cash money, bro? Let's cover you in leashes.
Should we at least sterilize these? No, I got this off the pond scum out back. You're solid, bro. Don't
I'm just
worry.
gonna go. I'm
Don't
gonna
worry
keep on
about
going saying leashes and not leeches because I
it. It's
don't think
better. Don't worry about it. You're totally fine. We won't even realize blood diseases are a thing for at least another 200 years. You're solid.
Yeah, you're another century or two.
What's a little
But
pus, you know?
you said
But
pus, right?
yes. So okay, let's get back on topic here. So weapons
Yeah.
maintenance, right?
Weapons maintenance. Okay, so boom, weapons maintenance. Let's talk it. Let's get it. Let's get gritty on it. So weapons maintenance in my book is if it doesn't shoot no more, you need to clean it.
Yeah.
That's probably not how you should run your gear if you're a true proper Minuteman. But hey, look at me. We all have our faults.
Yeah, I think for sure it's one of those things to where it's good to know where that threshold is.
Yeah.
And like, as a casual shooter or like even if somebody's taking it seriously, like you're not, none of us are in an active wartime environment unless you're listening to this in Ukraine, in which case that's cool.
Shout out to one of the people I work with. They actually just made it into the newspaper.
In Ukraine?
He's a Ukrainian refugee, and he's
Oh,
got some stuff going on over there.
I was like thinking one of them was over there doing stuff, but
Just dropping
yeah,
warheads on foreheads, baby.
I was like, way to go, you dude! Like, man. But yeah, so none of us are in an active wartime environment. So like, if you run your gun, basically, like I've ran my guns before to where they get dirty enough to where they start having malfunctions and they stop working. Then I clean them, and
like a man should.
yeah, exactly. I think that's fine to have in a setting where you're not necessarily being like, I have to have, combat ready at all times. But if you are in an environment where I'm trying not to sound douchey and use like tactical trigger words, but if you're in an environment where people are shooting the other direction, you don't want to let your rifle get to that point in the first place. Regular maintenance and cleaning is probably a pretty good idea. If there's some slow down time, probably at the bare minimum, some CLP and a brush down the bore probably wouldn't hurt you.
Oh yeah, absolutely, dude.
So,
but with that in mind,
ahead.
that's why you got to pack light. So when it comes to cleaning kits and stuff like that, I'm not building out an AR, dude. I'm packing light.
No.
I'm going light. I'm getting a can of CLP. I got
Mhm.
my Otis or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Boar snake.
Yeah.
Got one of those bad boys, string pulled, way better than a rod. I've broken so many rods.
Yeah.
So go out there and invest in some good shit.
Yeah.
And I have a toothbrush, an old toothbrush I used to use. I cut the handle off, and it's small. I can fit it into a sock. I use the sock as my wiping rag. I fit it all within like a tiny little portion of my pack. So there's no excuse for anyone to be like, I don't have room. I don't have the time to create something like a small pack out cleaning kit. You have the room. You have the capabilities. Just do it.
Yeah. I mean, Otis makes a good small cleaning kit in like a circular pouch that, takes up no space, like maybe the size of an apple. And, it's not very large at all. It's got everything you need into it. It's got everything you need as far as, pull throughs and brushes. And, really, I mean, basically all you're missing out of that is a small thing of lube, which you could figure that out. And then, if I think that, those are like, I don't know, $50, something like that. And then
for my tactical Timmies, I'm sorry. You were saying?
I was saying, and if you can't find anything that's really a good deal, just go down to the like your surplus store, go get a USGI kit, folds up pretty small, comes with a brush, comes with everything you need. I mean, it's got all the bells and whistles, and it's cheap.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. There is like you can be a tactical Timmy all day, but you gotta have the small stupid things too. You can't just run PVS 14s and like all your nod shit, your night vision, your D-bolt, whatever you may be. You can be high class, not as bougie as you want when it comes to all this gun shit. But if you lack in the minor spots, you fail catastrophically.
Yeah, and And I know this is a more AR centered with what we're talking about, but it goes for the same for any rifle too. Like, contrary to popular belief, AK guys, you do eventually have to clean your rifle. and,
Yep. And
and
piston
having
driven, don't get me wrong, piston driven's badass, dude. Like it can go through hell. Suppressed all day, baby. But yes, you do have to clean your rifle eventually.
Yeah, and some type of cleaning kit, and ways to store them. I mean, if you got a Woodstock AK, a lot of them have that little storage spot in the back. At least the old school ones do, like an old school SKS does for sure. But then like I recently
Yeah.
picked up a Swedish AK4 kit. So the AK4 is the Swedish designation for the G3. And yeah, I mean it was like that with an extra extractor, firing pin, and extractor spring, which are like the three things that are known to have any type of issues if you need to replace something on there.
Yeah.
All that together was like maybe $40, and so I
Yeah.
got a full maintenance kit, cleaning kit, take down everything, and it folds up nice and small. It's I mean it's like wallet size,
Yeah.
and takes up no space at all. It's a curved pouch. It's like it's designed to go, in a pocket against the body, something like that. Super simple, easy to have on you, and it's one of those things that you never know. Like if your gun's getting dirty, right? That eventually you're going to start having issues with it, and you really don't want that to be when you need that weapon to defend your life on. You don't want to be
Yep.
that guy that dies because you have, a weapons malfunction because your weapon's dirty. That's just embarrassing.
Yep. That's how you die. Is you get smoked because you're carrying a 45 and you wasted all 7 rounds. I
Yeah,
mean,
you're not getting into Valhalla that way.
another thing for us AR guys, anything like that out there, you can make this way simpler because you have a modern, actually useful weapon. Is just carry an extra bolt with you. If anything
Yeah,
goes wrong on your gun that is not that doesn't involve that bolt, your whole gun's down. So if I can take a bolt, throw a new bolt in real easy, and that's basically all the problems an AR is ever going to have is just replacing the bolt. Your extractor, everything like that, something gas problem, cycling issues, it's probably your bolt. Um,
another thing
with
too.
that in mind,
Another thing too, if you're carrying a bolt or if you are thinking about like your rifle already, one thing I recommend is if you haven't done it is upgrading to a nickel boron bolt carrier group. And the reason I say that is just I'm gonna butcher the science of it, but basically it's like it's ridiculously easy to clean. I mean, like it's almost like a lubricated metal in a way. It's ridiculous. Like you can wipe that thing down so quickly and so much easier and so much cleaner than you can just a standard phosphate bolt carrier.
yeah, it actually has the what to do all the way down to the chemical makeup of the
Yeah,
nickel boron is why the
it's like a
carbon doesn't stick to it.
lubricating metal or something. I don't. The science is beyond me. It's fairy dust magic, but it works.
Dude, it's just like EOTech's dark magic. But yeah, yes, with a modern rifle like an AR, dude, you get away with so many issues. Just carry an extra bolt, and you will never have a catastrophic failure. You can always throw a new bolt in there. AK guys, piston-driven systems, PWSs, love them to death for suppress shooting because no gas, and they run super smooth, buttery. But when something catastrophic happens with your, rifle, you're in deep shit. Like you can't just
Yeah,
grab a new piston like that.
that is one thing I would like to recommend to all you guys listening that are AK guys or you're driving a piston
Against
system, whatever it is. If it's a good idea if you don't already have some to go out and buy some spare components. Go to Apex Gun Parts, go to wherever you're buying parts from, and pick up a spare bolt carrier, pick up a spare piston rod or whatever your system is using. Your main operating system. See if you can pick up some extra pieces, things like that. Because while the odds of that system, failing completely are low, they're never zero. And if we're talking about a scenario where all of us are needing our rifles, we're probably not able to go online and order them anymore. So it's
yeah, money
probably
means nothing.
yeah, exactly. And for you AR guys, right? If you don't already have a spare bolt, go buy one. It's not that much money. Go get one. Go get it. Go get a spare BCG. And then the best part about it is, if you think, what, I'm never going to need this, just build another rifle with it. Now you have an
Or
excuse.
hear me out, right? Kill your friend for his. It's all fun and love in like the scavenger world, bro.
Uh, then you find out your friend's just running like a really piece of crap bolt carrier, like from some Chinese no-name
Right.
company. MakeMeWish.com.
Especially with all our tactical Timmy shit like that out there, suppressors are more mainstream. Everything like that's more
Yeah.
mainstream. Shooting suppressed will make your boy dirty. It just
Yes.
makes you all
Yeah.
out carbon covered dirty.
Yeah, especially as we start getting into different types of platforms like PCCs for sure can get really gunked up. I know my rifles and so like my AR pistol setup, I know that guy, man, dude, that thing gets dirty as all get out. And I've done replacement bolts with the bootleg adjustable gases. I mean, the bootleg adjustable bolt carrier group. It's where you can adjust how much gas you're receiving into the bolt carrier. Adjustable gas blocks. I mean, it really doesn't matter. That thing just gets nasty. It's a 10.5 and it gets dirty. Even my Daniel with few other add-ons and things to that, like they just run dirty. You're going to get dirty probably about 3 times as fast as you would shooting unsuppressed. So you do get the
Easily.
benefit of suppression, but you also get the downside, because nothing's free. You got to take and give. You get the downside of having to do more maintenance and keep up on that a little bit more frequently. So it definitely comes into play to where you really want to keep tabs on that. And if nothing else, like at least keep a brush and some lube on you because you can solve a lot with that. Like put a little you know, put a little lube on your bolt, brush it down real quick, rack it a couple times, if nothing else. I mean, it's better than nothing, but it's still not great.
And that you'd be surprised how many problems that fixes is just lubing the bad boy up, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. And weather conditions play a role into that too. When it's really, really hot or when it's really, really cold, you might have different types of issues that you're running into with that more cold than hot. But, with when it
Yeah,
gets really, really cold, and when I say really, really cold, for you guys in Florida, they're like, "Oh, it was 40 degrees today. That's really cold." Shut up. I'm not
we're
talking to you.
talking
Yeah.
sub temperatures.
I'm talking like below freezing. I'm talking like for those of
Frostpunk.
us in the Midwest to the Northwest that are very used to average of negative temperatures in the winter. That's where I'm talking is when it's so cold and it's not like a wet cold. It's that dry cold out that you know there is no lubrication. Like everything is so dry, everything's dried up.
Well, I was just watching a video my homie sent me from out in the field. They're doing cold weather exposure and like training, and
Mhm.
they just had the dude walking around with a bucket, literal tin bucket of CLP and a spoon, and he's just
Yeah,
putting he's putting CLP in it.
I saw a video similar to that. Yeah, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's things like that you got to take into consideration for your maintenance. And not just your rifle as well, but anything that you have attached to the rifle.
yep.
Your lights, your optics.
Batteries
Yeah,
don't last long in cold weather, dude.
exactly. Now, what I like to do with some of my stuff is if my pistol grip has a little hidey hole in there, like some of the Magpul ones do, I'll usually
Mm-hmm.
take like a lens cloth, an Allen wrench that fits the optic or whatever I have mounted on there, um, and then like a spare battery or two, depending on what battery it is and with the size and everything. Roll it in there so
Yeah,
that it doesn't rattle around and make noise. But have that in there just so I have something on me so I can have it ready and available if I need to do some quick maintenance. Because you never know it's really inconvenient when a battery finally does die on you, or like you said, if you're in really cold environments, that battery that's supposed to last 20,000 hours lasts 2 days and then it's dead.
yeah.
So
Because cold weather drains batteries, dude.
exactly, which again, for me, is another big reason why I recommend having at least backup iron sights or an optic that is going to have a reticle etched into it. Just so that
Okay,
way, if
fun.
batteries do die, you don't have to worry about it. All right. Now, speaking
Whatever,
of
fun.
FUDs, speaking of FUD, we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, I just as it, and that's more like if you're going into a cold weather environment, like if you're gonna have to go do goon boy stuff out in the woods or wherever, and it's going to be absolutely freezing. to, for at least one of our listeners, and hopefully he'll know who I'm talking about. That's up in Alaska. Um, you know, your cold weather considerations up there are even more extreme than mine, and I would love to hear from you guys up in Alaska and the Great White North up there, what your guys' battery life is like on your products, because I can imagine it's stupid. um, yeah, so at least so that's something that can take into consideration. So yeah, that kind of stuff. Also, just kind of like knowing the weather and the environment you're going into.
I mean, that's kind of going a little off topic because like that's getting more into environmental
Well,
research,
I'm
like things
thinking
like that.
just more like maintenance of just things to think of. Like, if you're in an area that's more by the ocean, rust is a legit concern.
Not if
You
you
know,
carry CLP.
dude, I think of I just remember very specifically when I was on my last Navy deployment and we got on the ship in Bahrain, and the crew that had been on before us hadn't touched the weapons in like 5 days, and the 50 cals that were mounted were orange, like completely orange. And we were like, "What the hell?" And they're like, "Oh, that's just a little, just a little sea salt. You guys will be all right. You all right? You
Yeah,
got it. Have a good time." What?
that's
What?
just my little something.
It was like 2 days to get them up and running. It was ridiculous. But yeah, so moving on, like you said, suppressors. Suppressors are becoming like very popular. They're way more popular than they were 10 years ago. They are the new
Hmm.
hot. If you don't have one, you're wrong. If you're one of those guys who says like, oh, I'm going to wait for the Safe Hearing Act, it's not going to happen. Okay, don't wait for the government to make it easier. Just go out and buy one. All right,
It's
just
never
go.
gonna happen, bro.
Yeah, the
She
longer
doesn't
you
love
wait,
you. She left
the,
you.
the longer you wait, the longer it's going to take. You know, just go do it. Just go
Exactly.
bite the bullet and get it done. The waiting will never be shorter if you don't start.
Yeah. I can actually, if we all start getting into it and making more suppressors and shit like that streamlined, the more likely it is that they're going to get those background checks done faster because there's more people that are willing to put in the time and the. Yeah, it's just a matter of, it's whatever's popular, you know? If certain things like that are popular, they usually put a hustle in certain ways.
Yeah, I think that if they ever do get around to taking them off the NFA, fantastic. But until then, it's a great tool to have. I highly recommend it. You don't have to break the bank either. Some people want to
No,
go
this is
balls
a
to the
decent price
wall.
point.
Yeah, some people want to go balls to the wall and get like Surefire or some like the higher end OSS or Q cans, and you absolutely can. Nothing wrong with that. They're super reliable, super awesome. There's got good accessories to go
I
with
am,
them.
I am some people.
Yeah, yeah. I would say you and I are kind of on the different ends of the spectrum here. You're super Gucci'd out. I'm kind of more like, hey, what's the best bang for my buck? And I don't want to blow the bank. Um,
I'm mid
I
tier though.
yeah, I would say like with me, I've got two Yankee Hill machining cans. I've got the Turbo K and the Resonator. So I've got their 5.56 can and their 30 cal can, and those were and then I've also got a Silencer Co. Omega 9K, and those are awesome. My Omega 9K kind of lives on my Scorpion. It's super nice and quiet with some 147 grains. The 5.56 can is relatively quiet for what it is, and 30 cal can on that 300 blackout is sweet. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that's kind of my thing. And my thing is going back, looking back on it now, like, well, my buddy was right. He told me like once you shoot suppressed, you'll never want to go back, and it's true. Like I don't ever want to shoot my guns on suppressed now. I don't like to.
I don't know why you would. You're not a peasant. No, I'm
Yeah, exactly. That's how I flex on the other pores.
and the others, we are still one, but
Yeah, it's
I'm
like
a little bit better than you.
yeah, it's like the Lord of the Manor gave me an extra loaf. You poor peasants.
And don't say you guys never had the opportunity to buy one because we all got a stimmy check.
Yeah,
You
for
had
real.
your opportunity.
Yeah. So I mean, like, and that's the thing is like the Yankee Hill cans, they're like sub $500. So you don't have to go blow the bank, and there you can always wait for Black Friday or for other sales, things like that going on. Yeah, you got to pay a $200 tax stamp. It sucks, but for those, hey, any of you guys that are listening to that are military, here's my advice to you, and this is kind of how I got mine and made the waiting go by. If you have a potential deployment coming up, that's a great time to go down to your shop, buy some
Bye.
suppressors, fill out some tax stamps, and you're going to be gone anyway. So the waiting's done for you. And what better way to celebrate your homecoming than picking up your suppressors?
It
At
is a
least
pretty good homecoming.
that's the way I did it, and it was pretty sweet to be able to come home and be like, all right, man, I already got it's like the waiting. I didn't even think about it, you know. So that's just kind of my thing. I highly recommend it. Do you want to go talking a little bit more, maybe about some of the different considerations for cans?
Yeah. Yeah, so considerations of cans, huge thing to consider is most people are like, oh, I just want one can. Like, if I'm just going to buy one can and that's the only can I'm going to rock, dumb idea. I thought the same way. I was
Good
going to get
point.
the
Good
36
point.
can. Oh, yeah. I was going to get a day because they can handle 300 win mag if I wanted to, like, rounds, the smallest round, 5.56, no problem. But the only problem with that, remember your boy size, your actual hole size, if you will. I'll put it in layman's terms. The hole and get out really good. And with that in mind, you might be shooting out of your barrel. Like that's essentially a suppressor, just a barrel. Get out there, your projectile out of there, and like that. You're not really silencing. You're not really. But with it's like a 5.56 can. So if I have you buy a 30 cal can with that can fit almost everything, 300 blackouts, your things like that, and then buy a 5.56 can and just have one dedicated for your AR platforms, your 5.56 rounds, and then have one dedicated to your 9 mils, your 300 blackouts, things like that, because it's going to keep that same suppression.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. And I think that is one thing that a lot of us getting into cans that don't really know a whole lot. That is one thing, like a very common mindset is we think like, oh, I'll get something that's maybe more universal or, maybe I've got a couple different calibers. So I'll get like a 30 cal can and I'll just kind of mix and match and make it work. Right. And in the beginning, that's, it's not a terrible idea if you can only afford one, but you very quickly start to realize that it's like super inconvenient to take it off of one, throw it on the other, blah 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 blah. Do it depending on what you're doing. So you very quickly realize that there's a lot of benefit in buying dedicated cans for at least each caliber. And very quickly you start realizing it's more important to have dedicated cans for each rifle or pistol, whatever way you're going with it. But I do recommend, if you can, um, trying to get cans that are all in the kind of the same family of mounting system. And what I mean by that is whenever you get your muzzle brake, so like whenever you get your suppressor, they have to attach to your rifle somehow, right? Very few anymore are direct thread unless they're 22 cans, meaning that they're just direct thread under your barrel. Most of them are going to have some type of mounting system onto a muzzle device. So you'll have to replace the current muzzle device you have with one that's applicable to um, that suppressor. Now, sometimes you get lucky and the brand recognizes that other companies make stuff and that other people like more than just theirs. So they make a variety of muzzle brakes that they will work with. Other companies are like, screw you, you will use our product, and they make it proprietary to theirs. So
Sure.
no, you got exactly do a little bit of research, right, before you just dive on in. And what I like to do then is, if I know that, for example, let's say if I can't afford a can for every single rifle I have, but I can afford a 5.56 can and I can rotate it through the 5.56 ARs. Okay, now I can go out and I can save a little bit of money. Instead of buying more cans, I can just buy that muzzle device, swap it out on all of them. Most of these muzzle devices work pretty well as a standard muzzle device when unsuppressed, and then I can just swap the suppressor out to whichever rifle I want to shoot.
And here's a little piece of advice for you as well. Know what you want to do for flash hider versus a was it muzzle brake versus flash hider, because the
Yeah,
flash hider does work a lot better when it comes to nighttime shooting, things like that, because it does keep that fireball to a minimum. But you have to remember, for your muzzle brakes and stuff out there, incredibly loud,
yeah,
and big fireballs, everything like that when you're shooting at nighttime. But they act as a sacrificial baffle because nothing lasts forever, right? You wish you could buy a
yeah,
suppressor and it lasts forever. The condition will always be great. Yeah. Never happens. But with a sacrificial baffle in there. The first baffle is always the one that goes out, and baffle is basically just a thin piece of metal that they put inside that suppressor, and that's what catches the gas.
Mm-hmm.
So the first baffle is the one that usually gets blown out and you have to get it repaired, whatever. So with a muzzle brake, it actually takes a lot of the force and a lot of the impact of those rounds in the gas. That way, it makes your first baffle last a little bit longer.
Another thing too about that is from personal experience, and from those of you who've shot next to the guy who's running a muzzle brake, it's usually super annoying to be on the left or right of the guy shooting the muzzle brake
Oh,
because you have
great.
the concussive force going straight out 90 degrees or, on each direction. And yeah, that sucks. So having the muzzle brake is a quick way to also not get friends. Um, but yeah, so different considerations as to what you're looking for. Another thing too, if you're looking more like specifically at pistol cans, um, the type of pistol you're running will depend on how much effort you need to put into it to make that can work. And what I mean by that, Glocks, for example, without
Piston.
without a piston and without a little bit of tinkering, suck running suppressed. Like you can't just swap the barrel to a threaded barrel, slap on a suppressor, and hope it'll work. You might be able to get away with it. I guarantee you, though, it's probably not going to happen. You're going to need a piston. I think it's a Nielsen device, isn't that the name of it? Um,
Um,
but
Sound Circle has their own piston
but yeah,
driven, yeah,
it,
piston
it
system.
yeah. So it's basically a piston, right? And it's the idea is that it kind of acts as a counterbalance because you're just adding basically the way that the pistol functions with all that extra weight up front, you're not going to get it to function properly. Now,
So bust it down in the layman's term again. Piston, it's literally just a small piece of metal with a spring that goes on the inside of the suppressor or onto the barrel. And what it does is when that barrel needs to tilt backwards in order to get that round to pop out of the extractor or something
yeah.
like that. Well, not the round, but the shell, and then the next round to chamber. That piston is basically going to soak up some of that recoil, and it's going to allow that barrel to tilt.
See, you're way better at explaining this than I am. But yeah, so that's why you need it for something like that. Now, some designs, for example, like an M9, from my experience, M9s, there is no right or wrong answer. It's literally very dependent on the can. Sometimes you need a booster, sometimes you don't. So sometimes you need the piston, sometimes you don't. Depends on the can, the size, the length, the weight. Some pistols, like as much crap as we give 1911s, they work very well suppressed.
It's so
Sig
funny. All the FUD
226, that's
guns,
another one. Yeah.
all the FUD guns work super good suppressed.
Yeah. Well, that's because they were all used by someone's grandfather assassinating Nazis overseas. So,
Oh yeah, is that why? It's because they're all fixed barrels. It's because
yeah.
all those pistols and FUD guns, they're all fixed barrels.
Yeah, it's because somebody leveled up in zombies. So, um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah,
Well,
so yeah,
so your good ones are going to be like Beretta. See how the barrel doesn't move when chambering the next round.
yeah,
1911's very small barrel
Sig
movement.
226 works actually pretty
Mm-hmm.
well. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, so do a little bit of research into what you have, what's going to go into it, because nothing sucks more than going out, buying a suppressor, and getting it on your gun, and then your gun not working, and realizing you got to go out and spend more money on more parts. Like that just
Oh
sucks.
no,
Like,
I always felt so bad when dudes would come over and they're like, "Hey, I just bought this suppressor. I want to go to the range and shoot it." And I'm like, "Well, sorry, buddy. You have about another $130 to spend."
yeah, or you be like me and need a tri-lug adapter to run your Omega 9K on your Scorpion, and Silencer Co. not currently producing tri-lug adapters. And then trying to find tri-lug adapters in the middle of COVID when no one has tri-lug adapters. It took me 8 months to get a tri-lug adapter. I'm like, cool, I got a can I can't use.
So, so for people that don't know, Trilug was a big thing back in the 90s, like with HKs and stuff like that. It's basically at the end of your barrel, there's three little like metal pieces poking up like Darth Maul's fucking head, and you push it down and you just turn your suppressor. It was a great idea, very quick, very detachable, everything like that. Great idea. But it never worked out in the end because Trilugs do have a tendency to break.
Well, mine hasn't yet, so we're gonna hope it stays
That's
that
what everyone says.
way.
That's what everyone says before catastrophic failure. And then
Shoots
next
it
thing
once,
you know,
explodes.
your suppressor is like halfway down.
Yeah. So another thing about suppressors too, and this is one I definitely just want to get out of the way, kind of some fuddlore that surrounds there. For those who've never shot suppressed, there is no such thing as James Bond movie quiet. The closest you will get to that is maybe some really good 300 blackout. Well, actually, probably some pretty good 300 blackout and 22, like some subsonic 22 out of a can.
But you're
But
still not stupid quiet.
I mean, yeah, you're not stupid quiet, but I mean, like even shooting it indoors, it's still relatively quiet. It's still pretty
Oh
freaking
yeah.
quiet. You know,
I like how
you're
most people's
you're
like,
not
yeah, most
getting
people are like,
on like, whoosh, whoosh, you know.
oh yeah, you're not shooting a guy like 5 feet away from the other guy and they're dropping and you don't even hear them. But another thing is like crazy about suppressors is everyone's always like, oh, Call of Duty taught me bullet drop. You know,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
yeah, my rounds will be effective at range.
yeah. So okay, so let's talk about that a little bit, right? So I guess if you were to be super technical about it, right, and just scientifically measure this, maybe you'd notice a little bit of difference. In all practicality, not enough to worry about. Further, you might like the only thing I okay, so like the only thing I've ever noticed is like at least some people said this. I never noticed it shooting any of my guns. That some people said there would be like a point of impact shift. Um, I never, like, I zeroed before and zeroed after. I never noticed a difference.
It's
Um,
because it's so micro, dude. It's so
yeah,
small. The actual differences between rocking the suppressor and not having the suppressor are such a small,
yeah.
minimal difference that
It's
you
not
would
like,
never know.
and it's funny too, because like when people told me this, like the way they described it was like it sounded like I was going to be like, 3 inches low or like way off to the left or something. And I'm like, how though? You know what I mean? Like I can understand low or high, but people were like, oh, you're gonna be way off, blah blah blah, and I'm like, what? Because I added a little bit of more length here and a little bit more weight. Like, nah. And then you go out and shoot it, and it's like it was negligible to the point to where it could have just been me.
Yeah.
Like within the margin of error. Now, if you're talking, yeah, 1,000 yard shooting and extreme distance type stuff, where like you might notice the point of impact shift or when things heat up, something like that. But for the average person doing the average ranges we're shooting at, I've never noticed a difference to the point to where I'm like, oh my gosh, my zero shifted because of this suppressor. It just hasn't happened to me.
And it never will.
Yeah,
It never will.
yeah, yeah. So that's just kind of my thing with that. Another thing too, like cleaning suppressors, right? Some people are like super like worried and nervous about like, oh, what do I do? How do I clean it? It's all one solid welded unit. How do I clean it? What do I do? And Mike, I know you've got some thoughts on that.
On like cleaning suppressors,
Yeah,
it's stupid. It's an arbitrary task. It doesn't matter to clean your suppressor. And I'm not saying this because I'm like that guy that's like, why would you clean it? It doesn't make sense to me. Like I'm saying this because it legitimately does not make sense to me. Every time you shoot that suppressor, you do things like that. You're cleaning out your suppressor, especially if you're running a 5.56 can. The only one that I will say I argue about is 22. 22 cans. I will say, okay, clean that can because shooting it will just gunk it up more. You're not going to actually clean it out by shooting it. But with your high-powered rifle or your assault weapon, your no good, commie everything guns, your AKs, whatever they may be, even though you can hardly suppress those because they're so bad about not being in sync. Um, those rounds clean out your suppressor as you shoot.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, hey, that was one more thing actually that you reminded me of. So for AK guys out there, and I'm sure you guys are probably aware of this, the unfortunate thing about running the AK family is that like the non-concentric barrels in the AK families is that like suppressors can be so hard to find for you guys.
The
You know,
Wolfers.
I know. I was gonna say, I know that's Dead Air, right? The Dead Air Wolverine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's the
Dead
only.
Air Wolverine. I think there might be one or two other companies, but like it's really hard to find stuff out there. So you guys have a lot harder time suppressing your stuff than the AR guys do, which maybe another reason to run an AR. Just saying.
There's a Ruski lover somewhere that is listening to this podcast that will inform us about all this.
And the irony of me saying that is I'm a guy who runs a G3 who really wants to suppress it really bad, and discovered in my journey of running my G3 that you literally have to buy like there's a part of your bolt that's cut at a certain angle, and they make like 8 different angles, and the only way to know it helps like the lockup of the bolt when running suppressed with the rollers and with the roller delay and everything.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to know which one works with a suppressor is to literally buy all of them and start experimenting. Like, because there's no one answer. It's not like, oh, I run this can and this angle works perfectly. You just have to, do it. Like, I remember like when Risky Krisky on YouTube did a video on his one time, and I reached out and I was like, hey man, like I've got a G3, like, what did you do to suppress it? And he goes, honestly, it wasn't worth it. And I was like, damn it.
Wasn't worth it.
He's
That's
like,
like
the amount of
words.
time and effort that goes into it, it's not worth it.
That's great words right there.
And I was like, man, that sucks so bad because that would be so cool. But then their rifle's heavy enough. Adding a suppressor to that on there is just, you want to talk about a modern musket. Like that thing would just become like a fixed
Chunk.
position weapon.
That'd be a chunk of a boy, dude.
Mounted on the back of a Toyota Hilux. But yeah, man. Yeah, so I think that kind of wraps up our suppressor talk. I did want to get your kind of opinion on a few other things real quick before we wrap up.
Let me hear him, dude.
So for those who aren't aware, I watch a lot of gun YouTube. Whatever gun YouTube is actually still left. And so I watch TFB TV to kind of keep up on like what's new and what's out there. So there's a thing called EWA, and it's like the European version of SHOT Show. It's kind of an international SHOT Show, right? And all these companies from Europe and all over the world display their guns. And I realized watching this, there is a reason why we don't let the Europeans do this alone, because they're terrible at it. So, prime example, there's a company out there. I think they're German, and they make lever action 22s. Now, I know what you're thinking. Lever action 22, what's the problem, right? Well, first off, they picked some stupid colors. They had like purple, bright orange, pink. Then they had some normal woodstock, a sniper gray, and a gold, like basically all rip-offs of like a Henry lever action 22, right? But here's the catch. They're all magazine fed. Now I know what you're also thinking. Oh, duh, they're magazine tube. No, this was like a detachable. It looked like an AK-47 magazine shrunk down to 22 caliber size, stuck in the bottom of a receiver of a lever action rifle that your lever literally almost runs into when you let like perform the action. It is one of the dumbest rifles I've ever looked at. It looks like a Fallout mod almost.
Sounds like something Keltec made.
Dude, it's gross. I saw that and I was like, really? And you're proud of this? The other company, I can't remember what their name was, and I don't ever care to remember. They made a 9mm revolver, suppressed. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, that's kind of cool. But it was a rifle, a suppressed 9mm rifle.
See, that part
that's a revolver. Yeah, and it wasn't. It was like, it was kind of. I don't understand how they made that work. And my whole thing was like the whole reason we got away from that, because like they used to make those. Like I think Colt made those back in like the 1860s, and the whole thing was that like when the round went off, right? Like for those who don't realize, like when a revolver goes off, right, there's a tiny bit of gap between the cylinder and the barrel, right? And crap comes out of it, right? You can see tests online where people put paper and crap like that around there to show you what it does. And that part's by your face.
But the part that doesn't make sense to me is you can't really suppress that, because where the explosion is,
like
the
that
noise.
Exactly.
It's at the cylinder.
Yeah, like I'm so confused. And I don't know, they just make weird stuff. So
I don't know. I don't like it.
yeah, and then it was funny too because H&K came out with basically their version of a P365,
No
and
one's done this before.
yeah, in typical AK fashion, they show up like 4 years too late, and they're like, "Look, ours is better. It's like a VP9 but smaller." Yeah,
Yeah.
like if you don't like it, it's because you're too poor to understand.
You don't understand. What does that do? That
But dude, it's just so funny like watching these European companies and they're all trying to appeal to American markets. But it's like none of them have ever been to an American gun show or ever been to SHOT Show or like to America. And they're like, yeah, what do Americans like? They're like AK mags and 22 lever actions. Yeah. Oh, let's make it pimp gold. Yeah. Let's boost some techno tunes. Americans love that.
Dude, it's just cigarettes for life. It just
You
screams
know what Americans love? Cowboy rifles and revolvers and suppressors. We should put them all together. Yeah. And
Is
you know
that
what the best part about it is, though?
what? They have better suppressor laws than us?
No, this is the best joke of all of it. That show took place in Nuremberg, and I was like, the Germans are still committing war crimes here.
Jesus, Austin.
I'm just saying. I was like, man, that gun's a war crime. Um, but yeah, man. Anyway, quick shout out, real quick, before I forget, to our sponsor again, the Men with Green Eyes. Check them out. Type in mid tier 10. If MIDTIEER 10. If you don't know how to spell, I can't help you. It will be in the description. 10% off your next order. Get some cool swag. They got some cool stuff. Potentially some cooler things coming out of there in the future. So yeah,
I
you never.
heard a little leaky from a bird. They're gonna have some pretty cool stuff coming out. I could tell
Yeah.
you, but I don't like most of you. So
He's like, I could tell you, but I hate you, and I'm too poor for this.
because you do
I'm
not
not
own
this conversation.
you don't own the HK365. You poor.
What is that? What's that meme where the guy's like, "I'm sorry, is this a joke? I'm too rich to understand."
Yeah. I don't understand what's going on here.
Oh man. But yeah, so thanks everyone for bearing with us. I know it's a little bit of a shorter episode. I'm trying to not hack up along here, so hopefully I'll be feeling better soon. Sorry about this being a little late. We had a little bit of a delay, but these things happen. Thank you guys.
Blame me. I'm the sacrificial lamb.
Thank you guys for letting us get to this point. It's been awesome. This is, I think, episode 12 now. I can't keep track anymore. So, yeah, it's super cool to be with you. I do have to say, Mike, I want to let you know, and I'm going to put this out here. I had one of our guys hit us up and told us that we are one of the top 3 podcasts that he listens to. So that was a little point of personal pride. I don't know who the other 2 that he's listening to are, so I don't know what to compare to. But I felt pretty cool about that.
It's My Little Pony lore and
yeah.
Angry Russians screaming into a mic. And
how do you know what I listen to when I sleep? That's my white noise.
Divide! Just loud as fuck. All right,
man. So, see you next time.
Yeah, get better.
You too. Bye.
All right.